This morning you were in the Oval Office asking questions of the President of the United States. And yet at the same time, at your office, at my office, at offices and newsrooms all across the country, there's an enormous anxiety. You've got a president who both calls you fake news, failing New York Times, and at the same time seems to crave your approval, like an ardent, twisted suitor.
Your words.
Yeah. Noted. What is the dynamic like up close, and when you go home at night, how do you feel about all this? What are you covering? Are you covering a normal president?
I mean, so we are certainly not covering an American president that we are used to, but that is also part of why he got elected. And so and if I'm not talking loud enough, please tell me because I'm getting over something. I might have given it to you, I apologize. And I've covered Donald Trump a very long time, so I have a context for seeing him through the lens that you're talking about, which is the person who loves the media, who subsists on the media. It's the fuel that generates him. It is the same, referential mirror that he needs to look in, to the point about Putin that we heard earlier, about living and creating your own reality. He realized he could do that in New York City with the tabloids in the 80s and 90s. I mean, when I was at the New York Post, he was a page 6 feature. And he was very frequently the person on the other end of the phone as a source close to Trump, talking about something. So,
and you knew that.
Well, I wasn't the person he was telling, so I'm not violating a confidence. But readers did not know that. And in 2011, when he thought about running for president, I took it quite seriously. I was at Politico at the time, and with my then colleague Ben Smith, we wrote several pieces about it. It was also when he began very heavily embracing the birther movement about President Obama. And you really see a lot of what he currently talks about, has run on, are the main threads of his administration. It all traces back, including, frankly, this sort of wistfulness for this bygone era that it's hard to track exactly what he's talking about, beyond going back to an era where things were different for many people, including Hispanics, blacks, women, and immigration was very different. Today, I was with my colleague Glenn Thrush. We had gone in ostensibly to, and I'll tell you this story and then answer your question a little more fully, ostensibly for an interview about infrastructure, which had been in the works for about a week. And he has been very upset with coverage generally. Because I was the main Trump reporter through the campaign, he associates most Times coverage with me, regardless of whether my name is on it or not. And he does this with other outlets. It's not just the Times. But so at one point, and there'll be a transcript of our interview that we'll post, I hope, at some point tonight, where he began talking about Susan Rice, the former National Security Advisor for President Obama, who he accused of possibly committing a crime based on, he would not give us evidence, he would not say what it was that she had done that was illegal. And I remember what has come up is that she had requested the identity of some Trump associates these are the reports.
The unmasking.
And that's what unmasking is. But there is a difference between, as she correctly said, unmasking and leaking and disseminating the information. Mm-hmm. And she says she did not do the latter. He maintains that she did. He maintains this is wider than we understand it is. And to your original question about the approval, he said at one point, he raised the topic. We sort of explored this with him, asked him questions, and he said, "You guys aren't covering it." And I said, "We've written about this twice." And he said, "Well, she did this interview yesterday with," and he was referring to Andrea Mitchell of NBC. He said, "with Hillary Clinton's PR person. Of course, you've been called that too sometimes." And he pointed to me, and I said, "Mostly by you, though." And he said, no, by lots of people. But then he moved on, and he again raised something about an interview that I had really ill-advised moment that I had in the 2016 campaign that I would take back, but it was misconstrued in a viral video. in an interview with George Stephanopoulos on This Week, talking about the possibility of a Trump nomination. And he still remembers this because I laughed at something that Keith Ellison, now the Democratic National Committee chairman, said. I was not laughing at what Trump insists I was, but it doesn't really matter. And I said, you are going to bring this up every time, aren't you? And my colleague Glenn said, what does this have to do with cars? Which we were there to talk about infrastructure.
It sounds like the fifth grade.
And the president said,
kind of like the interview with
the president,
earlier
but this was interesting. He said it's like therapy, and it is a bit like that for him. So I don't. What you do with all of this, I don't know. But the problem with understanding what it means is you don't really know what it means, because the president has been on all sides of most issues throughout the campaign, throughout the course. I'm not actually trying to be funny on that. He has taken many conflicting positions, and so when you have a situation like the last 4 days, where you had the Secretary of State signal that the administration did not see removing Assad from Syria as a priority, and then you have this chemical attack yesterday, and the images are horrific. The president did talk about that with us, although he was muted on the issue of Russia. And then the president came out an hour and a half after our interview with him, did a joint press conference with King Abdullah, and he talked more forcefully about Syria and said, this crossed a lot of lines for me, and I now view Assad differently. And what I would say was two things. One is that it was after he had spoken privately with Abdullah, so I assume that there was something said there, because Trump is very influenced by whoever he last spoke with. Again, I'm not doing a comedy line. This is where we are. And it was also made it impossible to tell what the through line is on foreign policy for this administration. So that is one of the big challenges, and I know Nikki Haley was here earlier. I didn't get to hear what she was saying, but I certainly heard the reception. There are, at any given moment, 3 different hints being given by Nikki Haley, by Rex Tillerson, and by the president himself on several topics. And so that is very concerning. The system, in terms of how they are dealing with the press in the White House, it is actually not as bad as it seems. I just would like to make that point. It has gotten better.
It's just as bad as it seems.
What it is it is there's an important distinction between something that is insidious and sinister, and then something that is just not quite competent, right? And so we're not, but really a lot of this has fallen in the second bucket, and it's too soon to say how much is in the first.